Welcome to the Virtual Millionaire Show, the ultimate destination for all things real estate investing. I'm your host, Michael McDonald, a real estate investor based out of Las Vegas, and I am on a mission to help you scale your real estate business. This podcast is designed to educate, motivate, and inspire you on your journey to becoming a virtual millionaire in the world of real estate. We bring to you experts from successful owners across the country who share actionable advice that you can implement immediately. Our goal is to equip you with the knowledge and tools needed to launch and grow your real estate investing business, paving the way for financial success. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Property Pros Marketing. Property Pros Marketing drives motivated seller leads directly to you through digital marketing. Check them out at propertyprosmarketing.com. Now, let's get started with another episode of the Virtual Millionaire Show. All right, coming back to you with another episode of the Virtual Millionaire Show. Today, I have with me Jeremy Beland. What is going on, brother? How you doing today?
Hey, man. Happy to be here. Always a pleasure to talk to you. It's been too long, but I'm glad we're here today connecting. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It has been too long, and it was great seeing you at the boardroom. Gosh, was it the end of 2022, I think it was?
Yeah.
And,
boy, time goes by too fast.
Dude, it flies. Yeah, where did 23 go? And we're already halfway through 24, too.
Insane.
One thing that I'm excited to talk to you about today is what I titled this podcast, which is Building Your Brand and Authority. And we thought 2022 was a long time ago. Do you remember when we met was it 2019 or 2018?
It was either 2019. Yeah, I want to say 2019 when we met out in Salt Lake City in Utah, right? And the scale event. I went there, met you guys, and I sent my acquisition guys out there for the next scale event. It was a good event. We learned a lot from there. Those guys do a great job. Not that they do it anymore.
Right. Yeah, it was a great event. And honestly, one of the things that I've watched you do very well is creating the brand that you have today. And so excited to dive into that. But before we do, we got to take people back, right? We got to let people know where did you start and how did you find yourself getting into real estate investing?
Yeah, I've always kind of wanted to get into real estate investing. You know, in the late 2000s, when I was in my early 30s, I really wanted to get in real estate investing as well. You know, I was a sales guy working a professional job at that time, making six figures. And, life was great. I had kids about the same age as your kids now. So they're real little, especially your littlest one. Life was great. But I was just longing for more. I was good with sales, but I wasn't sure if that's what I wanted to do. I had this entrepreneurial spirit. I actually got into some direct marketing, like multi-level marketing, and had some moderate success with that. And then somebody in there said, hey, I get these tickets. Why don't you go check it out? It's like a free seminar for Donald Trump University. So it was like a thing. I was like, oh, cool. Because I just read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I was like intrigued by all this. So this is probably like 2007, 2008. So I go to the Donald Trump University thing. And it's like you get the Fridays free. Then you can buy to stay the Saturday and Sunday. Then that Sunday, they try to get you to hook onto this $30,000, $40,000 coaching program, which I didn't do, but I did stay the whole weekend. And I was just, they taught you about all this like lease options, rent to own, just, creative financing. And I was just blown away with how much there was to know. So I went back home and then I started doing some more research, learned from Peter Conti, started reading Cash Flow Quadrant. It was just doing all this research. And then eventually I just started dabbling in it. And I was trying to do what we could call wholesaling now. There wasn't really a term for it, but a lot of it was trying to find for sale by owners through newspapers back then because, Facebook really wasn't a thing and Craigslist. So we were going through newspaper want ads and, trying to find stuff on the MLS. That's kind of how we did it. And next thing, the recession happened, right? In 2009, 2010. You were very young at that age, but I was basically your age when that happened. And within a year and a half, I went from making good money and having tons of equity in my home to being upside down, like $150,000. Couldn't find a job anywhere. It wasn't just a housing crisis, but it was also an employment crisis. And I'm a high school dropout, never graduated high school, got my GED, didn't go to college. Although I had success, people that were higher educated, more successful than me in the professional sales world or any professional white collar job at that point, they were all taking less paying jobs to kind of make the ends meet too. Everybody was struggling to get by and it just pushed me down the totem pole. So I started my world just changed. I was getting ready to get into real estate investing. Then everything just stood, right? Nothing was moving on the MLS. Nothing was happening. There was an abundance of homes. It was just a different world. There wasn't a housing shortage then. There was an abundance of housing, which is very different than the world we live in today. So to make a long story short, basically I had a real estate investor save me from bankruptcy and foreclosure because I knew enough about real estate investing to reach out to one. He came, short sailed my house, helped me out tremendously, gave me a reset button in life at that time, which is why I'm here today. If it wasn't for him, wouldn't be here today. I ended up at 33 years old, just before I turned 34, the age cutoff deadline, left my family, went away for 6 months into the Air Force, went to basic training, and to make a whopping $32,000 a year. I was super depressed, went there to build myself. Went to basically learn a trade so I could find a job, because I didn't know what to do. I couldn't afford to go to college. And then I came back, and a couple of years after that, of not really being able to find so much work, just kind of struggled, got divorced, and eventually found myself back to making 6 figures. But now I'm a divorced dad with 2 kids, and I started approaching 40. And now we're in 2015, 2016. I'm getting that itch again. I'm like, oh man, I really want to get into real estate investing. What I don't want to be broke and working for a W-2 and just struggling to get by the rest of my life. And, I was listening to all kinds of podcasts, and then sure enough, I came across this guy named Tom Kroll in the Wholesaling Inc. podcast.
Bam!
Bam! Yeah, right? Bam! I talked to him today. He's one of my coaches today for my coaching program, and he's still the same guy. Bam! Hey, how's it going? And he's so dynamic, right? And he was so magnetic at that time, and I was like, wow, this guy. So I'm like, I had this thing of analysis paralysis. At this time, I'm like traveling around the country for my sales job, and I have a lot of time in the car, a lot of time in the airplane. I'm listening to him for a year. I'm like, all right, wholesale is what I want to do. I don't have any money because I don't know how to use other people's money at this time. I can't go buy rental properties. I can't flip. These are all things I want to do eventually. But if I learn how to wholesale, then I can learn how to get the properties at the lowest possible level, and I can always wholesale them. But eventually, as I get better, I can learn to keep them for myself, right? And cherry pick my pipeline, which is how my business is run today. But I didn't really know back then that was the trajectory I was going to go, but that's what my thought process was. So I turned 40 years old. I said, man, I don't have enough money for this coaching program. It was a whopping $5,000 at the time. I said, I'm going to sell my townhouse. So I sold my townhouse, had some equity in it. And I took $11,000 of that $17,000 of equity, paid $5,000 for this coaching program, and $6,000 for my initial marketing spend, right? That $11,000 hit the ground running January 2017 at 40 years old. Got our first deal. So let's check today, a whopping $5,000 first deal. 90 days later, went on to do 10 deals that year of $73,000. But we built the foundation of something great, and we just continue to grow this ever since. And I've been very, very blessed, very lucky to be around people like you, have more great coaches like Cody and Mark Stubler and Todd Toback and all these guys, Steve Riches, Ken Clothier, you name them, tons of them. So, yeah, that's where it all started. And here I am today, year 8, finishing up year 8. And, we're around 450 off-market deals since we've started. I built $1 million business in New York. We have one in Florida. We built one here multiple times in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. Just one time, but we've been able to achieve it for many years now. It's crazy, dude. It's mind-blowing where we came from and where we are today. And I'm incredibly blessed, and I feel very grateful for it.
Man, that is a mic drop right there. There's so much to unpack. And one thing that I hear commonly amongst a lot of the successful people that I interview is just how much they were willing to put on the line. You sold your townhouse. You could have easily said, hey, you know what? The 2008 crash, it made me realize that real estate's not for me, but you got back up on your feet. You decided to take another chance at it. You sold the townhouse. You invested in a coach. You got all of these things. Guys, if you're listening, it may sound really scary. And I'm sure at the time for Jeremy, that was scary.
Heck yeah.
But going through, seeing, and just gives me another confirmation of what we do and how much of an impact we really make and help people, of that guy who helped you short sale your property, and how significant that right there in itself was on probably getting through that really difficult time, because I can't even fathom what that must have been going through that time.
Yeah, I was on the brink of losing everything. And, think about where you are in your point life now, right? Happily married and kids, and you made some success. Obviously, you're way more successful at your age than I was then. But to have it all go away, and you're like, and there's nothing you can do to fix it. You just feel like a failure. You're letting your wife down, you're letting your children down, you're letting yourself down, and spiraled me into depression. I felt helpless. The whole world felt helpless. You know, the government wasn't helping us then. There was no SBA loans because of COVID or anything like that. The banks were being bailed out, but the average homeowner who was upside down, there was no programs to help you out. You were basically screwed. And that was scary. But that guy, he provided a lot of value. I mean, not just that, dude, he was like, because you can't profit off of a short sale. So if your listeners are listening, you can't profit off a short sale. But because I had no money, he was like buying things like a shed in the backyard for $1,000, a washer and dryer for a few $100. And this was actually money that was a Christmas gift for my kids, food, you know, for just basic needs, clothes on their backs. We didn't really have the bare necessities. And he helped us survive that low time for many months. And yeah, so he gave me a reset button, and I went off to the military and decided to work on building myself back up, which I did. And now this is what we do in our business, right? When we work direct to sellers, who we a lot of these people are good people falling on hard times. Dan Toback always says this: we're 1 or 2 life choices away from being in that situation, or 1 or 2 life events outside of our control and being in that situation. And we can go in there and really provide a lot of value and help these people and give them reset buttons in lives, in which we've done many times, you as well. Now, so to pay that forward hundreds of times over is amazing. And now I'm an ability where I'm teaching students to do that to their community and their network. The outreach is amazing. So I'm getting paid to just continue to pour this value back into society and the community. And it's an incredible blessing. It really is.
The amount of impact that we have the ability to make as real estate investors is just absolutely incredible. And I kind of had a full circle moment. I want to ask you about this on your journey. You know, a lot of us, when we first get started, it's hard to see the bigger picture of what you and I might talk about with our businesses. And I remember when I moved to Las Vegas in 2019, my wife and I visited Laguna Beach, and we were just there yesterday. We just got back. Yeah. And we were just talking, wow, I had no idea what we would have been able to create in our lives. But when I was there at the very start of my journey, and I'm curious from your perspective, when you were at the very start of that journey, how did you take what you didn't know to be proof of concept and turn it into what we've created it today? Because it really is kind of crazy to think about, to really give somebody actionable steps on how they could be at zero, right? You just closed your first deal. You made $5,000. How did you create 450 plus deals off market later? Like, that's a huge gap, right? So I guess what I was reflecting on is the gain.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've done a whole bunch of deals too, but where does somebody start in that process?
The same way you did, brother. I took money that I started getting and I started reinvesting it into paying people to teach me how to get better. Originally, it was just, how do we get better at the acquisition side, right? How do I get better at talking to sellers so I could do more deals and get bigger spreads? And then one of the coaches taught me how to leverage the MLS, and it was a game changer in our business. And then I learned from Chris Noggle, hey man, this is how you use private money, right? And then I started just investing. This is how you grow a business. And, you know, as we stand today, dude, like, and you're probably in the same boat, you know, between masterminds and ongoing coaching, not just for myself, my team as well. And they're a big part of this, but we've invested a lot into training, coaching, and self-development and learning, upwards of like $350,000, right? Wow. So a lot of people have no problem going to spend 30, 40, 80 grand a year for college and may not even come out with a job in the field that they do, but they can't wrap their head around even spending $5,000 on a coaching program that will potentially give them the building blocks to change their lives forever, right? But I'm not wired that way. That $5,000 coaching program with Tom changed my life, but it's all the ongoing coaching and this never ending, you know, passion, just like you do now. I want to keep getting better every day. 1% better, 1% better, 1% better. I want my team to get 1% better. So that has been huge for our success. And then obviously just building a team of rock stars that have the same vision of you, investing into them, having that team and investing in yourself, put all that stuff together. And that's how you accomplish what we have accomplished.
That's powerful, man. And 1% better, that's the name of the game, right? It's not an overnight success. It's many daily efforts compounded. And I know you're a big fan of daily routine and habits and stuff like that. I've heard you talk about reading daily. So did you start implementing that simultaneously to getting into real estate? Because I know I did, and that was a huge game changer for me, just like your daily routine.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Crow was read books, read books, read books. And, I didn't read any books from Jurassic Park from the 90s until that point, to the, late 2000 and teens. And so I just started reading books and now I love it. I listen to audiobooks occasionally, but I love reading books. And then in 2019, that beginning of that year, I read The Miracle Morning, after coming off a very difficult end of 2018 where I thought the business was going to be, it's over. And that book gave me my morning routine. And it was just one of those pivotal moments that helped build the foundation for the next step in the next journey of my life. So yeah, reading has been a huge, huge part of that.
Yeah, 100%, man. And guys, if you haven't read that book, I picked that book up, Jeremy, in 2018 myself. That book, I believe, single-handedly changed my life because it made me disciplined to implement that savers routine that it talks about in the book: silence, affirmations, visualizations, exercise, read, and scribble, which is basically journaling, right? And if you guys have not read that book, you have to check it out. Very powerful, but you can't just stop there, right? You have to put in the work. You have to continue and invest in yourself. I listened to every single episode of Tom Kroll's Wholesaling Inc. podcast, and it got me so fired up. and that's how I found out about scale as well. But I want to talk about scale today, right? We're gonna dive into brand. You have an amazing story of obviously unpacking how you got to where you're at today. But something happens, when you start to get into real estate, you start to go to these networking events, you start to go to these masterminds. A lot of us, ego, pride, whatever, we see other people running a multi-million-dollar business, and we might think that grass is greener, right, on the other side of that. And so we were talking about this beforehand, and I would just love to hear your progression of doing it yourself, closing all the deals, and then what that looked like as you grew and where you found kind of that sweet spot in your business.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And when you come into this world, there is this underlying thing. I don't even know. It's just like everybody must scale, right? If you're not scaling, and it goes as individuals, if we're not growing, we're dying, right? We always want to be evolving and getting better. And our businesses are the same way. And we do have ego. We do have pride. We want to be really good. We want to be successful. We want to, keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, when it comes to business. And we're trying to keep leveling up. But I don't know if you can necessarily have to scale to do that. So there's always been like this pressure, and nobody's really putting the pressure on. It's just like social media and society in this world that we live in is just like, you got to scale. And, a lot of it is obviously because we want to build a team. So we're not working in the business every day. Right. And then you go working on the business, but then you start working so much on the business, you're replacing all the time you had in the business with all the time you're spending on the business. And you're putting in all this time and effort, and you may make some money, more money, and may grow, but I don't know if the juice is always worth the squeeze. And Brent Daniels early on, and I remember him talking about a podcast that he did. This is when he started doing TTP in like 2018. And we were talking right around the time we saw him at like a Wholesaling Inc. Summit. And he talked about his TTP started to blow up, right? It was just him. He was making $1 million a year. All of a sudden, he just started hiring all these guys, got this big office. And he realized that when it was all said and done, his net profit was the same. He was just spending more money, making more money. He was spending more time, working harder, but his net profit was the same. And then he scaled back. And I remember that moment, but I didn't take it to heart and really listen to it. And then I find myself like, I want to grow, I want to do all these markets and stuff like this. And now as I reflect back, I'm glad I learned these lessons, but bigger isn't always better. It is for some people, right? If you want to run a virtual wholesaling company out of an office and you want to have 20 cold callers and that's what you want to do, great. Few people succeed at that. Many won't. Right. I'm happy now just being a local home buyer in my New Hampshire, Massachusetts market. And then with Dan Toback down in Southeast Florida, we do 35 to 40 deals in each market a year, which is basically 3 deals a month on average, right? But we turn those into 7-figure businesses annually because we know how to maximize the exit strategy on the back end so we can maximize revenue. So we're achieving the same results from a net profit perspective, but I don't have to spend so much more money on marketing. I don't need this team to support all the marketing, all these leads, all these acquisitions. All my team has a better quality life, not just me, but like my sales guys, my business managers, my VAs, like all of us, we're making good money and we're happy. And we still have opportunities to add rentals to our lives to enhance our wealth. And right. And rather than being like, I need to be X in 2 years, what's the rush to get there in 2 years? There's no destination here. This is a journey. If you told me I'm rich enough to retire tomorrow, I wouldn't, because I'd be bored out of my mind. I want to work. I love this business. So I'm going to spend the next 20 years taking my time, enjoying time, making money. And if it means I make a little bit less money each year by working less, I'm totally cool with that, because I'm going to be 48 years old. One thing I can't get more of is time. I can always make more money, and I know how to make a freaking ton of money in this business, but I can't make a ton of time. So getting that time back has been more and more important with me. And now we go by the philosophy of less is more. We're going to make more with less, and we're going to have a better quality life. And maybe sometimes we scale up a little bit, but no more am I going into like, I'm going to be in this market, this market, this market. I'm going to have 4 sales guys and disposition guys in this big team. Dude, too many sleepless nights. I don't want to go through that again.
Yeah. Well, you're speaking my language, right? Because, at that mastermind, I was at that point in our business where we had more people than we needed because revenue was just so high. We were consistently hitting multiple 6-figure months. And we're like, okay, well, how do you lose money when you run that type of operation? Well, you start to see the holes when interest rates go up and things change a lot. And what I love that you said about this is it's the lessons that you learned, right? Right. Sometimes we just have to go through these types of things to realize, hey, this is what I don't want. And I've been through it as well. And one of the most powerful questions that you can really ask yourself is, how do you define success?
Yeah.
And I heard you say it. And for you, I see it on your shirt too, is freedom, right? It's your time, your time that you get to spend with your family, because that's one thing that we cannot get back.
It's irreplaceable.
No, it's irreplaceable. So how do you find that balance, right? I think that's my biggest takeaway through going through that experience. Okay, there's got to be a balance here. There has to be a business that makes profitable sense while still maintaining time with family, taking care of your fitness, taking care of your health, spending time with your kids, right? There's a lot of things that go into this that I see personally. I've watched and, I've seen people with insane high revenue businesses, but you look at them, it's like, man, are you really where you want to be? Like, your health isn't there. You just went through a divorce. Like, this is life. These things actually happen, but don't listen to this and learn, right, from what we're sharing, because you don't want to go through a health scare. You don't want to go through a divorce. You don't want your kids to forget who you were when they were 5 to 10. There was those core memories because you were too busy building this empire.
Yeah, well said, dude. And what is wealth without health anyway, right? If I have all this money, I'm too sick or too unhealthy to enjoy it, what's the point? But I will say, what happens with people like us, right? So we're very entrepreneurial. We want to achieve things, especially results. Business can be addicting. And I think scaling a business is addicting. And that's what gets us to a point where we want to build and build and build. And all of a sudden we become workaholics and we lose sight. If you ask yourself, like, hey, in the beginning, what are you hoping to do? I want to make good money and have an abundance of time. And then as you get into this business, the time starts to lose its value because you're just like, all right, I understand where the gap is, but all I can see is the gain ahead, right? I just got to keep going on, or better, I'm sorry, I'm saying that opposite. I know where the gain is. All I can see is the gap, right? Where I want to go. I want to blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, it's really all not that important. I think the addictiveness of our personalities make us fall victim of it. And, a lot of people, like you said, will find themselves living a life they don't want to live in an effort to make money. And I think some of us it's not for everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well said, man. And that's a fact. And I'll tell that to people too, right? This isn't for everybody, because you do take the chance, because we have to kind of have that addictive personality of just like, you have to laser focus and go all in. And there's a lot of shiny objects that could come up, but the most successful people are the ones who they stay focused, but also have the awareness to recognize, hey, when is enough? And I got to ask you this question because I think the listeners they're going to get a kick out of this. When I first got started, I remember thinking to myself, Jeremy, man, if I could just make, I think at first it was $5,000 a month. I just want to replace my income. If I could just do that, I'm good. But then it became, okay, if I can do 20,000 consistently a month, gosh, I don't even know what I would do with that much money. Right.
Yeah.
And then as you continue to scale, it's like, okay, well now that doesn't even cover half of our marketing budget.
Right.
And so those numbers change. So I'm curious on your perspective, what was that number when you first started? What was your number when you first started and versus what is your number today in terms of your goal per month?
So that's been constantly evolving what my goal is. I will say that it's funny because $1 million forever, my entire life, always just seemed unfathomable amount of money, right? Just, it was like, I couldn't comprehend $1 million until you make $1 million. You know, $1 million isn't really that hard to make. It's really not that big of a deal, right? Which is just kind of mind blowing when you think about where you came from. I was a poor kid my whole life and poor adult most of my life, right? So the fact that I'm like, $1 million, not a big deal, but it really isn't. $1 million isn't a lot of money. It seems like it is, but it isn't. I know it is for most people, but in business, it's easy to generate $1 million. Now, I wish I was taking home that $1 million. It's not all for myself. My business generates it. You know, originally, I just wanted to make 6 figures a year and just quit my W-2. I hated the job. I just wanted to have a flexible job where I could work from home, which I've been able to achieve. You know, we have 3 kids that are out of the nest now. We got 1 more leaving next year and then another one a few years after that. So out of our 5 kids, they're going to all be out of here in a few years. The last 7, 8 years of their lives, we've been home. We work from our kitchen table. We don't have an office. We never had an office. Our kids were always at every school event. The kids are sick. They don't have to go to school. They need rides. We're always available. We've been able to weave this business around our lives and our children's lives to a point where sometimes they're like, what do you mean you're out somewhere doing something for work? What does that mean? You know, they can't wrap their head around it. Whereas most people, like in our generation, parents just went to work every day. You know, we've been able to give our kids that blessing, which has been amazing. And that alone is worth a lot. So to answer your question, I just wanted to make 6 figures a year. And then when I went out to Kent Clothier, originally met him, he's like, so how much you want to make a year? And 2 things he said to me that day that was just like, and if you guys don't know who Ken Clothier is, you should. He's a stud and he's a great coach. So he said to me, you know, I just said, I'd like to make $30,000 a month. I'd like to make like $360,000 a year. I think that'd be really good because we're not really into materialistic things. But as inflation goes, like, man, 5 kids and if we want to travel, that money can go fast. Why wouldn't you want to just make $100,000 a month? I don't know. I just always thought that would be like greedy, right? I don't know. He's like, really, all you're doing now, you just have to do blah, 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 blah. And you can easily make it. I was like, whoa. Now, I haven't yet to make $100K a month. I'm waiting to at some point. And it's kind of like.
Just to clarify, you're talking personal income.
Personal, 100,000. But to me, it's more of an ego thing. I don't need $100,000 a month for my lifestyle to achieve anything, right? It's more like, wow, I was able to accomplish making $1 million a year personally take home. For me, it's like an achievement. But it's really like a moot point because it doesn't really mean anything. It's really arbitrary. I make more than enough to take care of myself, which is fine. But one other thing I want to share that he said with us that day, because I've always lived with a scarcity mindset, because I've been homeless 3 times in my life and broke 3 times in my life. He said, and, you know, my wife, Shelly, she comes from a very, very humble background, just like I do. He said to us that day, he's like, you know, because you know how to acquire off-market properties and you have the skill set to go get deals, generate it to revenue. He's like, you're never going to be broke again, ever. I was like, you got to be kidding me. He's like, no, you have a skill set that you can be dropped anywhere in the country and you know how to make money. You will never be broke again. And I was just like, okay. So got rid of that fear. So what my number is today, I'm sorry to just babble on. Dude, I don't really care. I just want to continue to make more money, but not at the sacrifice of giving up more time.
You know what? I love that answer. Even though it's not like this is it. I just love hearing that progression. And this is something a lot of people go through. I had my best year in 2022, Jeremy. You know, we made over $2 million in our business.
Amazing.
And I was just thinking to myself at the end of that, I'm like, okay, I just bought my dream car on my birthday. On my 30th birthday, I just bought myself a brand new Porsche. And I got in and I was smiling, right, as anybody would. And I thought to myself, is this it?
Yeah.
So this is the feeling, right, that everybody busts their butt for, kills himself for to get. And it's so much more than that, right? What are you doing it for? What's your balance?
Yeah.
And not having that number, it's okay. We have more than enough. And Kat makes a really good point, right? He's like, why wouldn't you just do this much, right? And that's why I love interviewing people like yourself and other people, because the question that I always like to ask, and this is I steal this from Jason Hartman. He talks a lot about this. Compared to what?
Yeah.
Are you comparing yourself against Kent? Or are you comparing yourself against Michael, Jeremy?
Right.
Who are you against? So it's all about figuring out what you, the listener, wants.
Yeah. And I think we compare ourselves to too many of our peers on social media. And a lot of times it's smoke and mirrors. And we're comparing ourselves to things that aren't even reality and putting all this pressure on ourselves to make ourselves feel inferior, that we need to step up a game. I want to just say one thing, because you made a great point about the Porsche. And I know we got to wrap this up. You know, I've been a car enthusiast my whole life, and I had a Dodge Hemi Charger 392 a couple of years ago. It was like my first muscle car my entire life, other than my crappy IROC Z from the 80s. And I just recently bought a nice Corvette, and I love the Corvette. But a lot of times when I'm driving it, and I love the car and it's fun, that feeling of, and it just sounds really, I'm not gracious for success of owning a Corvette, but it's just like, is this it? That's all there is to it. Okay, I've been working hard, and this is just a Corvette, and it doesn't have as much meaning and value. And I will say that I have more fun, if by far, and I enjoy much more going for a long bike ride on the Cape Cod Rail Trail with my wife for the day than I do driving a $60,000, $70,000 sports car. And one is basically free, one isn't. So, I mean, money is great, but, you know, there's other things in life that money can't buy, or money doesn't really have a value to at all. And some of those things are just amazing. So, I don't know, made me think of that.
That's good, man. It gives perspective, though, right? Because, you know, a lot of people, they get into this business to make a buck and to get the Ferrari or the Lamborghini or whatever. But then when you actually have it, it makes you realize that, oh, you know what? I had just as much fun going and staying with my kids on the beach for a few days than I would ever have driving a car by myself. Right?
Yeah, without just taking off, right, with your family. I'm just going Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's the middle of a work week. I don't have to ask for permission. I don't have to put in sales time. I don't have to have anybody covering. I'm just freaking going. That to me is way more exciting than just driving a sports car.
Yeah, that's freedom for sure, man. Well, I want to touch on just real quick, like what you're doing today, because I listened to another interview that you have. And one of the things that we both do that has served us really well is just our branding, becoming the authority in our market. And so I want to talk a little bit about that, just so listeners can hear from your perspective. What's working well for you today in marketing your business and building your authority?
Yeah, you know, Dan Tobak's very passionate about this, and he's done a great job. And honestly, early on in my career, I had the ability to watch him and Tom really become the authorities in their areas. And I've just kind of copied and pasted what he did. So this is what we teach our students now. I know a lot of people love the virtual model. I know you do some virtual stuff as well, but you also work a local model too, right? And I really love, even if we are in multiple markets, to have like, we're the local home buyer. So we, over the years, my wife and I have just built ourselves as a local home buyer. We started just really doing a lot of content on Facebook and sharing it and sharing our journey and our success. And then we became our new wholesaler, to all of a sudden, you're the only wholesaler I've seen in this market that's successfully doing deals, to now you're like this guy that's buying houses. Now everybody knows you in time, and which is crazy, right? You know, to an extent where we changed title companies last year because we're frustrated with the title company we lose for a long time. And apparently everybody was up in arms that we left a title company, went to another title company with, like, it was Channel X News at 6 p.m. And we're not thinking anything of it because we're just in our own little world. And it sounds so corny to me. But, you know, the attorney calls me. He's like, listen, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. I don't want to put this perception out there. And all these people are like talking. Did you hear that? New Hampshire home buyers left that title company, went to it was like breaking news. And I'm like, But that's because we've become so popular in the area. Now, we don't pay attention to any of that stuff. We just do our thing. We live in this small little bubble.
Yeah.
But to everybody else seeing our success, that's what they think about it. But that's because we continue to brand, continue to post. We're authentic. We're true. We're not trying to pretend to be something we're not. We share our failures as much as we share our success. We provide a lot of value to people in our community and outside of our community. And we have a team that feels the same way. But you consistently do that. The compound effect over time yields great results. And that is definitely brand awareness.
So good, man. And I just saw your post today. Congrats on successfully paying back. How much money did you say?
$1 million. Isn't that freaking crazy, dude?
Hey, hold on. That's
only
just
interest. Yeah, our investors have made $1 million in profit and interest payments. We paid them from borrowing their money for the last 5 years. So that means we basically pay people $200,000 a year or more to use their money. So yeah, one of our private lenders, she quit her full-time job many years ago and has been living a nice life lending to us. But it's amazing what we've been able to achieve with that. And that is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling for sure. When I saw that, I'm like, whoa, that is massive. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
I was reflecting on the amount of interest that we paid after you did that. And we're well over, I think, 300,000 paid out just this year.
That's amazing.
Man, how many people win when we do a real estate deal? It is
tons. The seller, the buyer, us, the lender, the title company, the contractors. We're providing so much value in so many different directions, more than people realize. It's tremendous. And we make really good money doing it in the process, which is really fun.
Went across the board. Well,
exactly.
Dude, this has been really awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, for sure, man. Can't wait to be on yours coming up here. But
coming up soon, bro. Coming up soon.
For sure, man. So hey, listen, for people who want to learn more about Jeremy, like and connect and collaborate with you, let them know where they can find you and connect with you.
Yeah, man, I'm all over social media. Again, brand awareness, right? Jeremy Beland, Beland, Jeremy Beland. Hopefully you can hear that through my thick Boston accent. But I will say the best place to reach out to us is reifreedom.com or Off Market REI Freedom Fighters. That's our Facebook group where we just pour a ton of value into providing free education for people in this community, in this world. So Off Market REI Freedom Fighters, free to join, free to learn, and love to have you there.
Love it, guys. So yeah, check Jeremy out online and then also connect in that Facebook group. I've been seeing it blow up, man. So that's been fun to watch. And take action, take massive action. For people, final thoughts, anything you want to leave these listeners with today?
Well, you just said it. I'm going to say the 3 things that I always tell people. Always be learning, always be marketing, and always take massive and perfect action.
Yep. It's like I read your mind. I already knew.
Well, hey, listen, we got here because we do those 3 things consistently. That's why you're successful, and that's why I'm successful.
True that. All right, guys. I know you got value, so please do Jeremy and I both a favor. Tell a friend, share this episode, and join his group. And until then, we will see you guys on the next episode. Thanks again, Jeremy, for being here, man.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Boom, another episode in the books. Thank you guys again for listening. Before I let you go, I just wanted to invite you to our Facebook group, Virtual Deal Makers. It's a perfect place to connect and collaborate with other like-minded real estate investors. And all you have to do is simply search Virtual Deal Makers on Facebook and apply to join the group. Thanks again to our sponsor, Property Pros Marketing, for supporting the show. Go ahead and check them out at propertyprosmarketing.com to elevate your lead generation. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It really helps, and we greatly appreciate it. Share the podcast with your friends, and stay tuned for more valuable insights. Visit thevirtualmillionaires.com to see everything about the episode and connect with me. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, keep crushing those deals and building your real estate empire. This is Michael McDonald signing off from the Virtual Millionaire Show.